This is Talking in Stations. It is currently Season 2, Episode 8. It is also May the 2nd, 2 days away. Holy cow. Is the Sunday show on May the 4th? Somebody help me with... No,
It's on the...
Saturday is May the 4th. We're going to have to do some sort of, special episode on Saturday. So you can be on the lookout for that. It may happen, it may not. But in any case, we're getting sidetracked. I am Artemis Albosa, a member of Pandemic Horde. Joining me today on the show is always Ron USMC.
Is this the Game of Thrones spoiler channel, or can you point me?
Oh, you are getting muted. Okay. Ron is from Test Alliance, please ignore. By the way, if you're unfamiliar and you're a member of our Discord channel, if you post Game of Thrones spoilers, you will have one very mad Matterall permabanning you. But also on the show today, we have Faley Fryer.
How's it going?
I think I mispronounced your last name.
Yeah, that's fine. Freer, but yeah, doesn't matter.
Fair enough. And Faley is a member of Pirate. Also on the show today, we have Radomir Johansson.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back, man. And Radomir is a member of Test Alliance, please ignore, and their, I don't even know what you would call it, the Perimeter Police Department. It is a connected group, but a group with one singular...
It's a corp, and it's also like a SIG.
Fair enough. Well, let's start with talking about them. Well, no, we should contextualize your presence on the show today, Radomir, because some big news came out. ProGod, or was it really, made a post on announcing that the Perimeter Trade War, the war that has been constantly going on between Test Alliance, please ignore, current owners of the Tranquility Trading Tower, and Pandemic Horde, as well as I Choose You, the former owners of that market, have been fighting over who would be able to have structures up and markets in place in order to gain the income from the taxes on any market orders that took place. And it was announced by Villy, as it turns out, that that war has ended. So I'm just reading through the post here. It looks like everybody came to a profit-sharing agreement is the exact terminology there. So you can be rest assured that income will be split in some manner or form between the various groups. And also, wartime tax rates have ended. So if you were paying attention, you would have noticed that when the Tranquility Trading Tower went up, the tax rate was set at 0.3%. And then it was dropped down to 0.1% in order to prevent Asbels going up from being able to make money and pay themselves off to be able to put back up again after they were killed. Now it's going back up to 0.3%, right, Radomir?
Yeah, it's actually, I just checked there, it's actually back up to 0.3% now. So part of the strategy was lowering it to help discourage using the Asbels. So wartime's over.
Well, Radomir, let's hear an AAR from you, if you will, about the war. What was it like fighting in Perimeter and the surrounding areas?
Jeegers. I think one of the important things to stress is that high-sec fighting is totally different to what a lot of our pilots and what a lot of the guys who were fighting are used to. We had to retrain our FCs how to, you can't bubble anymore. Just remember that. And things like that. But it was definitely, I think, a learning experience for a lot of us. And I think from test perspective, most people really, really enjoyed it. We kept getting solid numbers. We kept getting really good fights. People kept coming. The benefits of it were seen across the Alliance as well through various, through the SRP program. So it was a really positive venture for test, and it helped us learn a lot.
So, I do have another question for you, and that is the Asbels being put up. The mechanics there are anyone can place a structure in high-sec, and an Asbel is the cheapest structure you can place, which can also have a market module online in it. And theoretically, anyone, not just Pandemic Horde or I Choose You, can put up one of these markets And with the tax rate now at 0.3% in Tranquility Trading Towers, if they were to set their Asbel tax rate to 0.1%, for example, would they not be able to capture a portion of the market? Are you concerned about that at all, or do you think nobody else really cares?
I think there's definitely going to be people who tried. Part of why the tactic being employed worked was because there was people investing in not there was people investing in I choose you rather than in test. Some random corp can put up an Asbel, but without the backing and the investors to put the money into it for it to become a threat and seed the market, it's it won't gain any traction. The other side of it is, of course, the ability to defend it, which is very important. You can put as many structures down as you want, but if you can't defend it, it's ultimately going to blow up.
So I had a thought. Oh, Feroxes, right, those wonderful ships. Feroxes were like the main doctrine used in these high sec fights, although not initially. And you're an FC for these high sec fights, Radomir, who experienced sort of firsthand the shifting landscape of what doctrines were actively being used. So can you walk us through, like, when it started out, what did you think you guys are going to be using to fight over all these timers? Why did you, I think you used Dommies at one point, you used Maelstroms, you used Ferox, and then there's also like Lashaks, which we constantly see just a Lashak wing in basically every fleet in high sec, even today, even with the Ferox going everywhere. So walk me through what's the decision making process like on deciding what doctrine to bring.
So when we started the high sec campaign, you'll notice Ojanen followed quite quickly after. And one of the doctrines that we brought to Ojanen was the Megathrons. So initially we wanted a good, strong armor doctrine and a place to test it. And so high sec was a way to do that. Once perimeter police, once the initial sort of flurry was over, we thought, okay, there isn't much resistance here. A small group can handle this. So we came up with a Typhoon Fleet issue Lashak Nestor doctrine, which was then be supported by Test Dominic and Test Nestors. And that works against small, medium gang fleets. It works really, really well against small, medium gang fleets. But what we discovered was throwing 250 Feroxes at a Dommy fleet trades pretty well. And so we then, of course, had to adopt the Ferox thing ourselves. And I remember one fight in particular where every single Ferox hull and nearly every single Hurricane hull in Jita and Perimeter, or in fact the Forge, which I think was a testament to the. Oh, did we lose someone?
Nope, we're good. Go ahead.
Here we go. I think it was a testament to the incredible number of ships that were getting killed in these battles to clean out a market like that.
Okay, some technical difficulties. Problem solved. Continue, Radomir. Sorry. Market issues.
Yeah, so I mean, after that, we put out a call to build Feroxes, and actually, before the call went out, I had a number of pilots contact me personally and be like, "Look, I'm putting X number of Feroxes in the cooker. I'm putting, X number of Hurricanes in the cooker. Some people were Osprey, some were Bazzy." And then Test use some of the profits to build their own cash. I'm not going to exact numbers, but it was an mind-boggling amount of Feroxes that were built for this campaign. It really was.
Your Dominic's doctrine. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I think Villy showed a screenshot. I think it was like 600 or something, just in the one hangar or something. Yeah, I just remember.
Yeah, there was that screenshot that went around, and that's, like I say, what was in that hangar, not what test pilots themselves were producing, not what had already been reimbursed. It was really a mammoth effort, and Test really shipped up to that ship.
I'm curious about your Dominic's doctrine. So in high sec, a few noteworthy mechanics are that Citadel's upwell structures can't fit point defense, so these are basically smart bombs that you can fit directly to the structure itself. And they also can't use guided bomb launchers, both of which were extremely effective tools at defanging drone comps in other areas of space, low sec and null sec, for example. But in high sec, those aren't there. And so drones suddenly become viable. In fact, before this war broke out and other skirmishes over the Shab and Botane markets, we've seen rattlesnakes be extremely effective. In fact, I think Phaley Pirate uses rattlesnakes almost exclusively, don't you? Or have you fully swapped over to Lashaks now?
No, there's definitely uses for the rattlesnakes and different times whenever we do use the Lashak. But yeah, we like rattlesnakes.
But I'm curious specifically, Radomir, about your guys' Dominics, because you seem to have like 200-kilometer
I think
drone
you cut out
control
there.
range with it.
Cut out,
Oh.
buddy.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
I'm curious about your Domi fit, because you seem to have like 200-kilometer drone control range with the thing. Like, is that just you had free mid slots to throw some DLAs in there, or did you have something like NATOs that you were specifically trying to counter comp?
So it wasn't specifically designed to counter NATOs. The idea was to stop. Essentially, what we wanted to do was just sit on a structure and not have to move. So you'll notice the dummy fits most of the time don't have prop mods. The other time it would have fit an F. The idea was essentially just to sit where we were, hold our ground. The mid slots we would have changed out for tracking disruptors, sensor dampeners, remote ECM. Like those mid slots changed nearly every fleet. Sometimes it was tracking links. I remember one instance where an Ishtar fleet warped to us at 0, and we loaded 3 tracking speed scripts in our dummies because that's what we had fit at the time. Needless to say, dummies track apparently pretty well at point blank range with 3 scripts.
And you were using sentries there, right?
Yes, we were using sentries in that particular fight. So again, the drones changed. Dummies are very, very flexible. We could use heavy drones if we needed to. We could load up a ton of ECM drones if we needed to. The nesters allow us to refit drones on the fly. So it was a very, very versatile and adaptable doctrine. But as I mentioned earlier, one of the really big problems it had was when the numbers got bigger, they didn't trade well. Eve has this thing called tie-dye, which, as everybody knows, is a pain in the backside when fights start going. And as a result, we ran into frequent issues where drones were refusing to follow commands. To swap from one target to the next with drones was taking like 4 or 5 times longer than it should have been, which meant our rate of fire and the rate that we were killing Feroxes plummeted. To the point that we were killing one Ferox every like 30 seconds because of how long it was taking just to get the drones to do what we want. And that was genuinely our biggest problem with the doctrine, was just getting the drones to do what we needed.
I know quite a
And
few
that's
like solo small gang PvPers will be lamenting drones just randomly deciding to stop shooting things when you have them put on another target. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, well, put 150 battleships on the fleet and see how that goes.
and that's that was one of those doctrines that looks great on paper, and it still looks great on paper. If you put that next to Ferox's, dummies, are superior in every way, except when you try to use the doctrine. And then tie-dye kicks in, and, it's like PIFA doesn't have a thing where, what if the drones don't lock? What if you have to redo the drones? What's the time on that situation?
Yeah, it's worth noting here for people unfamiliar with drone mechanics, even sentry drones, they have a separate lock speed and lock time. When I last looked it up, every sentry drone is exactly the same. It takes 2 seconds to lock a target, regardless of its sensor strength, or pardon me, regardless of the target's signature radius. And so I did the math on this when I joined Horde and was looking to get into the high sec fights. And it is literally impossible for a Dami doctrine to apply sentry drone damage to a NATO fleet if that NATO fleet has a sub 5-second align speed. Because just the amount of time it takes for even an insta-locking ship to target a ship, put some sort of EWAR or damage on it, and then for the assisted drones from the Dami to do their damage, it takes 5 seconds in server ticks.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a problem we ran into. There's a few Reddit threads about our nesters erupting into fireballs. Because we didn't have an FC to command a tackle wing. I think I got very annoyed that fleet, if I'm honest.
All right, well, that's all stuff about sort of the fighting that has already happened, some interesting insights on the doctrine choice there, which I was personally curious about. But the big news here, and the reason you're on the show today, is because the fighting has ended. The war has stopped. So, Radomir, what can you tell us about this deal that's been made?
I think the important parts are already public. The deal essentially was one of three outcomes for this high sec. First outcome being that Horde backed down, which we thought they would and quite clearly didn't. The second being the Keepstar dying, and again, that was proven on a few occasions to not be possible. We don't think it's possible to kill a Keepstar in high sec. I feel like I'm throwing a gauntlet down, but I mean, people have already tried. Especially if you know that there's enough friends on your side. So, when the notion of a deal was put forward, the math was looked at. The cost of the war for all sides was looked at. You have to remember that both sides had to pick and choose whether they came to high sec or whether they dealt with a timer in their own space. Horde isn't getting off scot-free at the moment in their own space. User involved in other conflicts. I think it made sense for everybody just to go, well, why not split the profits? Which, of course, is the third outcome.
I say that point you made about other people having to defend timers in their own space was a concern of mine when sort of, I believe it was ProGod Legend made the big old post and the war drums were beating for Legacy Coalition as the non-invasion pact was ending between them and Fraternity. I was like, this all sounds great. You've got fighting to do right on your doorstep. It's an opponent that Legacy thought that they could easily handle, or at least would put up a good fight, and they'd have some fun, good content, things like that. But they've also got this other timer regions away in space, right? You have to jump clone. You can't like scepter up or anything, at least in a reasonable amount of time. I think it's going to take like 30 minutes to an hour just like scepter burning up to Jita from the heart of Legacy space. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think the fastest we've been able to do is sort of in the 15-20 minute mark with hyperspatial scepters and the jump gate. But yeah.
Oh, right. Jump gate networks. How could I forget about fatigueless jump gate networks? Of course.
They've been really handy. But like you say, you can't flash form like that. If you want to flash form to defend a structure, and this is why most of the Tatara was reinforced on a nightly basis to its armor timer, because we couldn't flash forming up all the way up there when we've other things to do. And all the things we want to be doing just it didn't make sense for us.
Yeah, so this certainly, it relieves some pressure, and it definitely also relieves possible sidetracking, or more specifically, situations in which, as you described, Legacy would have a timer that they would want to contest down south, and their war with Fraternity, and their war with Winter Coalition, I think is what people are still calling them, even though it is my contention Winter Co is dead. It's a completely different beast now, but whatever. So if Legacy has a big iHub timer down there, well, Fraternity can just go up and maybe poke their buddies in Horde and say, hey, reinforce the Keepstar for us, will you guys? That way the timers come out and conflict with each other, and now suddenly Legacy has to make a choice. Do we defend our high-sec Keepstar, or do we make this aggressive move further down south? So I'm certainly interested to see, and I am hopeful that conflict in the south heats up in terms of timers over sovereignty and structures, like the things you get really massive tie-dye fights out of. Even though some people don't like fighting in those fights, the results of them are super interesting. So I hope we get some more of that in the future as a result of this deal.
But, like Radomir said, we're reasonably sure that the Keepstar won't die in high-sec. But, the other side is that, that Keepstar is 15 jumps from, PH's staging. So they can just start a timer anytime they want, right? Like every day. How about every other day? How about every third day? So it's not about the destruction of the Keepstar as much as the harassment of it, and it's like, oh, it just drones on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and the Keepstar doesn't even. Go ahead.
I think the harassment of it's a big part, but that's a two-way street. Those pilots have to keep reinforcing the same thing over and over. There was a period there where I think when partisans were deployed in Jeddah, they reinforced that Tatara every 2 nights for nearly 3 weeks, and they never like there was no follow through. So how long can when you're an attacker, can you keep doing quite literally the same thing over and over again before your members just like, right, lad, here, sort this out?
4 months, I think, is what it is. 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But I
fatigue
mean,
is
I think
certainly there on both sides.
we with the taxes up now, our rough napkin math means that test will be still probably better off than we were even with the deal. So, and of course now there's more motivation for everybody to help protect it and um, clear the surrounding area of some of the other stuff.
It's worth mentioning with regards to the Keepstar and Tartara and it getting reinforced, you don't actually have to kill the structure in order to have a meaningful impact on its value. All service modules turn off after it goes, or once it's reinforced into hull, right? So if you reinforce it 2 times, go through shields and armor, then all of the service modules shut off. That includes markets, and that includes, when we're talking the Tartar or the Asbel, any refining modules, industry jobs, production, things like that. So the jobs will be paused, but people then can't, if I recall correctly, get their assets out, right? You have to actually cancel the job in order to get your assets unstuck. So it would be a significant blow if any of these structures even made it into a hull timer, because then all of the trade that was happening through them would just instantly stop. No more income from it for up to a week, I believe it can be, for an armor timer to hull timer.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. The Citadel mechanics have that sort of early point where you can shut down a Citadel sort of part way before killing it and make it no good to the owners. But I think what we were certainly seeing was a lack of appetite to have to fight through the armor timers on these structures, which test were, we made sure we showed up strong for the armor timers even when nobody was forming up to fight it.
Yeah, Smurf in chat, is asking, and you guys touched on it a couple of minutes ago, but talking about people just dropping Astra houses. Well, Asbel is the cheapest structure you can drop with the market module and making some money. But the, the thing is, if you're going to drop an Asbel in high sec and you're going to do that before we kill it, you have to move a lot of, you have to move a lot of plex or injectors to be able to make, like 5 billion in, whatever, 3 or 5 days or whatever. So unless you have that amount, of stuff to put on the market and be there and sell it, then it's not going to be worth your time.
Yeah, a major part of the speculation, and I say speculation is important here because it's never actually been confirmed, but it was rumored that the reason Horde and I Choose You were able to so effectively continue to place down Asbels was because I Choose You himself owns a significant portion of the Plex market and even like the injector market and other subsidiary markets of the Plex market. And so when he would put up these Asbels, he could guarantee that he would have a certain number of transactions going through it because he could use it himself and use it at a 0% tax rate, which meant that he wasn't giving 3% or 1% to Test or their allies, and therefore that savings would pay for the structure itself. And any other taxes he would gain from other users using his market in the meantime was just a cherry on top. That is the speculation. I think it makes sense, like it's reasonable, but it has never been confirmed. So take it with a grain of salt.
Well, I mean, I think that was pretty much confirmed by himself. I mean, well, we know that it was him that was putting the Plex through those markets, which is why we couldn't stop. But that is why that tactic worked, and I think his main overhead cost was paying for. I would hope he was paying for Horde to be there.
I think what could be a good litmus test for how much continued conflict over this market we're going to see after the deal is the conflict we've seen in the Botane and Ashab, which are the offshore markets for Amar and Dodixie, respectively, or pardon me, Dodixie and Amar, respectively. And so those markets in particular, I know Pirate had in the past, at least when we were working with Mercenary Coalition, a deal to protect those markets and squash competition. Faley, can you say anything about if a deal currently is in place and anything at all about the conflict taking place in those markets?
Yeah, I can say that there is currently a deal, and I can't talk about specifics, but yeah, we help keep stuff cleared out, and it's
So
content.
how often does that conflict arise? How often do people just randomly drop an Asbel to try and get it on the market?
To be honest, not very often. At least over there. I mean, we have, we use timer board just like most other groups or some form of it, and I mean, we have ops all over the place for various structures that people put down, and sometimes it's, I guess, kind of trying to get a foot in an area like that, maybe not necessarily right there in Ashab, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, you don't really see a whole lot of it. And you asked a question earlier, I think, to Radomir about if he thought that, like with the wartime ending, if he thought that other groups would try to, sneak one in or get in on it. And to be honest, I really don't see that happening. Number one, I mean, it's an investment and it's effort, and let's just be honest, ultimately, it's going to die. So I think
Fair.
really only the largest groups can really play that game.
Well, that's certainly true in the past, but let's look forward to the future, because coming in May, we have some changes to the war declaration system, and the significant changes coming here are new war headquarters. Also, wars are going to cost less, going to have some other miscellaneous improvements, but specifically the war headquarters could have significant impact on how these wars take place. In fact, in my own head, thinking about if the test war had continued, right, before the announcement was made by Villy that there was this deal. In my own head, I was thinking, if this War HQ thing goes into place, then any time Test wants to kill a competing market, currently they're using Perimeter Police Department, and then sometimes they get tested on the wars as well, but for a lot of the initial Rios, you had Perimeter Police Department there explicitly so that you could quickly respond and get those Vortex out and get the initial reinforcement timer through or kill the structure before it even onlines. That was the goal. But after the War HQs come into place, suddenly you're required to have a structure in HiSec flagged as in headquarters. And if that headquarters gets killed by anyone, not just the defenders in the war, then you cannot declare war on anyone who you currently have an active war with for which that structure is the headquarters. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Perimeter Police Department couldn't use the Keepstar because they don't own it. Am I incorrect on the understanding of the mechanic?
Yeah, no, you're correct. We couldn't use the Keepstar. We have structures anchored. Um, I really, really want to get the Amar fort actually that sat there because but yeah, it's something we have to look at.
So do you think that, like, with that wrinkle coming in May, right? Theoretically, it's going to be happening not next week, but the week after. It's usually the second Tuesday of the month for these sorts of changes. Was that a factor in your minds when you guys were making this deal? How big of a deal did you think it was going to be?
Well, I think a large part of the war was around a large part of any future war going ahead. Because of the size of the groups involved, we would have Test would still have been, if the deal hadn't finished, involved. So the Keepstar would have been the headquarters. So it would have just, I think, it wouldn't really have changed much from that perspective. For us, certainly PPD makes it a bit more difficult. But then PPD's role during the war was one of mostly reconnaissance and doing various support things. Like they were constantly looking for Asbels and timer stuff like that. So yeah, I think it'll have more of an impact on PPD going forward, certainly because it is a small sig, but not. I think even if the wars had continued, it wouldn't have affected anything for Test.
Interesting. I would have gone the other way around and thought that. Well, then again, I guess I misunderstood the role of perimeter police department. I thought they had a more impactful role beyond just getting the first timer through.
So they didn't. I mean, because of flash forums and the way different things work, the perimeter police department were guys spend hours upon hours hours upon hours searching and scanning and probing for these citadels to find them and try and catch them as quickly as possible. Um, it's really hard to take a small group of pilots against 150 pilots and hope that you which is why I tested most of the legwork for it when PPD characters joined in before the remote assistance changes. They would have joined in and they would have flown the Leshaks for us mostly.
Ah, that's a fair point. It's worth mentioning that, was that back in April? The change was
Yeah.
made that remote assistance can no longer be effective, right? So you cannot remote rep or give remote SIBOs or anything like that to another ship in HiSec that is not in your corporation, or alliance rather, for the sake of Vortex. Otherwise, you just get Concord Oaken. Previously, you'd only get a suspect flag, which can be dealt with through various means. So it was really sort of that change which prevented PPD from having a bigger role than the War HQs, if anything.
Yeah, that was really the big one for us. Our entire sort of concept relied on test pilots in Omega clones in nesters for the smaller fleets. When things turned into the big brawls, test pilots in the Ferox fleets.
And the major role of PPD in the very beginning was that we could have several people that were directors that could instigate these wars, at the drop of a hat, right? So, there's only a couple of people that can declare a war from test proper. So what we could do though is with PPD, we catch an ASBEL going down at 4:30 in the morning. There's going to be someone on that can, declare war against them and then hopefully get them within that first half hour. So we don't have to go through all the timers rather than wait for, one of the test guys to log in and then declare the war.
So it sounds like even if conflict starts back up, even if this deal is broken or a new player enters the arena, the war on perimeter won't be affected very much. But the same can't really be said for the other major point of discussion whenever HiSec and Vortex come up, which is Pirate. Because Pirate has long been a mainstay of the more standard HiSec war scene. And they don't necessarily always involve themselves. They're not, how should I put this? Pirate is not solely we own and support these market structures in Ashab and Botane, but you guys have other gameplay that is solely related to conflict that arises through HiSec Vortex. And these changes, specifically the War HQ changes, should change things dramatically for you. Faithley, can you describe for a bit to us how these changes could impact you guys?
Well, I mean, obviously, lots, if not most, of the game or people in the game absolutely hate us for just because what we do and how we like to enjoy the game. So here's my prediction: is like I would say the first month to 3 months, it's going to be mayhem. I think we're constantly going to get reinforced. I think it's going to be lots of blobbing stuff that generally would be unreasonable for us to attempt to handle. So, I mean, without going too in depth on various strategies on how to mitigate risk and loss and keep as many wars as we can going, uh, there's been a lot of speculation on the forums and on Reddit about where people think we're going to put our structures and tie our wars into the HQ. And, how often we'll blue ball. And, I'm not really sure people actually want to fight us. They just want to, deny our content, which is cool, which is fine. But like I said, I say a month to 3 months, and then it's going to get cumbersome. It's kind of like what you said, Ron, with the 4 month campaign. Really, do people want to chase pirate structures all over space for the rest of their Eve career? I don't think so. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Looking at your
what are your what do your pilots think? Like, are they excited for, because at the end of the day, this is content, right? I mean, this is the fight coming to you guys. So, are your
Yep.
pilots excited about it?
So I'll be honest and say that there are some, I think, that are a little bummed. Obviously, there's going to be uh, people um in the alliance that are all about basically using wars as a way to farm easy kills and ISK. But there are a lot of members that do like the engagement. It's the ones that are manageable. Obviously getting blobbed till it's just crazy isn't necessarily fun. But I understand. Like I said, I understand. But uh, but yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement. Things are changing. A part of the game that a lot of us have enjoyed for a long time is changing. And so with that comes the opportunity to adapt and see if we're able to. Like I said, there's only so much we could do. There's only so much we could take on, and there's only so much our usual strategies will take us. So obviously, if one group brings their entire hammer down on us, there's really not much we could do. We take the beating, and we continue on. But yeah,
Well,
I think there's a lot of excitement, and then there's also probably some people who are less than thrilled.
the irony is, like I would tell you, just like a little baby new corp, that if you don't want to get harassed by the big boys, just pull up all your structures and you'll be fine.
Yeah, but see, it's not really an issue for us. I mean, we're not like you come like let's just say I don't know, let's just say goons or PH come and clear all of our stuff out. We're not going to cry. We're not going to it's just it's part of the game. It's part of what we signed up for. Obviously I know that like uh you know I don't want to say that it's like a meme because it's true a lot. We tend to bring like a hammer when we could have used just a small fly swatter. So we do a lot of blobbing and a lot of upscaling, when we could have brought maybe something that was T1. And so we understand people wanting to do the same to us and giving us a taste of our own medicine. But like, you know, we we completely buy into like the whole risk versus reward thing. Like we are completely fine like losing our stuff if that's what it takes. If people want it that bad, they could come and take it from us. And that's the part of the game that we enjoy. We like that built-in meta into the game where nothing is safe and bad things can happen. So like a lot of the people who are super vocal against us just absolutely hate that we can affect other people's gameplay to the extent that we do. And and we're oftentimes, for most of us, we're wishing that someone would kind of give us a taste of our own medicine. And some of the most fun that we've had, even and I know that you probably want to ask it in a little bit, but like the groups that have all merged with pirate now to form, I don't know, this super pirate.
Super
you
pirate.
know
Yeah, that's what I was
yeah,
gonna say.
so like a lot of these groups, like we have like almost like hated each other at times in the past, but some of the most fun has been whenever we've been at each other's necks. And like, you don't hear about it and you don't read about it on Reddit because nobody cares about HiSec and nobody cares about HiSec wars. But like there's like this really interesting culture between all of these merc groups that have come together now where we've put aside our differences, after seeing these changes and what CCP's goal and vision is for wars, where we've said, okay, we are no longer enemies to ourselves, but we have to fight off the rest of the game now. So, it's going to be fun.
It's a lot like the wormholes. They just went through it, right? They kind of all band together, and trying to help each other out. I think, you know, uh, the only thing I've always, disliked about, organizations like Pirate or whatever is, picking on the newer players, right? Like less than 6 months or less than a year or whatever. They don't have much, or they're high sec miners or something. I mean, I don't really, have a lot of stories or whatever about pirate in particular. It's mainly usually code, right? But
Right.
that's all I've really cared about. Everything else, the high sec, the ganking, like, I think that's legitimate. I think that's a fair gameplay, et cetera, et cetera. So, I secretly, deep down, I want you guys to have so much salt and get, absolutely
Hang on, hang on.
destroyed.
This
But
is not a secret, Ron. Everyone knows that you hate high sec word effort. Carry on.
but I love your attitude though, because I think, if you dock up those phoboses and you just hit back, man, and you just fight and you guys have fun. And I love to hear about the super pirate. Like, I think that's such an, I think 2019 will be a really interesting and fun year for you guys.
So I want to there's really nothing to clear because sometimes it's like so obvious, and like I know people are just gonna hate me for even trying to defend my position on this. I would say that in the past, a lot of people have used War Decks exclusively as a griefing tool for new players. I mean, you look at a lot of games that have PvP in them, and lots of people enjoy beating down on people who are like freshly geared or unequipped, or they don't know what they're doing. But it's kills, and so kills are cool and kills feel good. So, but when you're talking about in a more evenly keeled fight, I can't talk about Old Pirate because I was not a part of Old Pirate. I came in with a group called Vendetta Mercenary Group, VMG, and like our group specifically, I mean, yeah, we inadvertently killed probably lots and lots and lots of new players, and we probably war decked lots of newer groups. But for the most part, the goals with that was either purely out of uh, motive of profit. Either we saw somebody flying something extremely profitable to kill, or a really nice kill, or a really funny kill, or it was some sort of contract that, and that's what a lot of people don't see is like, yeah, this 3-man corp got war decked because we were paid to war deck them because the system that they mine out of, there's another competing group in there that doesn't like them for whatever reason. So yeah, we kill them. But now in the golden age of injectors, you know, a 1 week old character isn't necessarily a 1 week old character. I see a guy uh, flying a T3 destroyer, might be a newer player, but is he really a newer player? And what's crazy is like if you just go look through Pirate's kill board and you look at some of the highest value kills, people flying some of the most ridiculous ships, T1 ships, Hecates, or however you want to say, however you want to call them.
Yeah, Hecates or something.
Yeah, there was a Bastion kill. Well, the dude jettisoned the container, but there was a Bastion Hecate carrying like 150 bill in BPOs and or in capital blueprints, and just insane. So if you wouldn't have chased that one little Tech 3 destroyer, they wouldn't have gotten that kill. So yeah, a lot of what we do is motivated by ISK. A lot of what we do is also motivated by the content that we get. There's a lot of grudge stuff. There's a lot of fighting like that. But yeah, I completely understand people's position and like, oh, all we do is kill and bash and strangle new groups and new players in the crib because it's just going to happen. Because of how wars are now, we tend to have to take a shotgun approach.
Really quickly
Yeah,
before we go too far into
good.
Super Pirate, I want to ask you, Ron and Radomir, when these changes go through, if Pirate actively has a war against you, or if Pirate does throw a war up, do you expect that Test and any member of Legacy Co. will just instantly go in and kill off whatever structure that they currently have set to HQ? Is that what you expect to be happening going forward from you guys?
I mean, I don't think Pirate would war deck us. I really hope they wouldn't, but yeah, if they started messing, no offense to
Yeah, let me
We
just
could
say
get
I'm not leadership. I'm not leadership, so I don't have the leadership relationships between like Pirate and Pandemic Horde. But I don't. Or, I mean, sorry, with Test. But I don't think we'll be war decking them like that. Not Test.
Well, I mean, you currently have a
Yeah,
war against brave newbies who are members of the members of Legacy. You currently have wars with TNT, with Goon Swarm, people like that. So my question is like, all these people, which admittedly are giving you extremely juicy kill mails and a lot of money, do you think that over time you'll be able to fatigue them out of killing just random Raitarus in the middle of Syndicate or whatever, or not Syndicate, Solitude, or do you think that just forever people who are members of these large coalitions who could just take a 200-man fleet over to wipe out your structure, you won't be able to get content out of them?
We're not gonna. I don't see us deploying every single case of, oh, those are gonna be big bad scary guys that are gonna kill all of our stuff. Obviously, if there's like a specific request from people that we're friendly with, at least on business terms, then yeah, we'll take it into consideration or negotiate that. I don't see us just saying no. We're going to keep killing people that you have a loosely affiliated alliance with, or however you want to call it, just because we want GC kills. There's plenty of GC kills to go around if we can't deck brave newbies.
but let's be honest though, Pirate's not going to be able to diplo their way out of a lot of this shit. Like
Right,
a lot of
right.
this is going to come
I,
like a
I
train barreling down on them.
right. I will say that in the past, that Pirate has been involved in a lot of this market stuff, uh, solely based on our presence in HiSec. And like you kind of said, 4
Yeah, like let
months.
me let
It's
me let me
annoying.
pull you
It's
out of the
annoying for
hot seat
players
here.
to come in and out.
Let me pull you out of the hot seat here with the stuff around
Oh,
HiSec
fine.
Ordex, or pardon me, the markets, because you may have certain things which you can't say. But back when I was a member of Mercenary Coalition, and back when Faley was a member of Vendetta Mercenary Group, because they were still a thing, there was a deal between Mercenary Coalition as well as Mogul and VMG for the markets around Amar and Dodixie, which Mercenary Coalition had put up and initially captured. That Mogul would run them, and then Mercenary Coalition and VMG at the time would maintain them. So they would kill competition and also fight anybody who came to try and kill the market structures which Mogul put up. So that was the deal in the past when Vendetta Mercenary Coalition was still a thing. Or pardon me, Vendetta Mercenary Group was still a thing, and when Mercenary Coalition was still a thing as well. As far as I'm aware, Mogul still owns that market, and Faley has said earlier in the show that there is still some sort of deal as far as maintaining that between Pirate, which is now where Vendetta Mercenary Group is, and Mogul itself. But that's all the stuff which is public knowledge. We don't have to worry about OPSEC, don't have to worry about breaking agreements here to get that information out there.
Well, I know that we were working with Pirate. They were, in and around HiSec, and so I knew that we were blue, or we might even still be blue. I'm not sure, but we engaged Pirate, for the trade wars in some manner. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and that's common knowledge. There, because Pirate killed one of our ships one time, and it was like a big event. But I don't know like the extent of it or anything like that. But I just know that we were working together for a little while. We might still be working. I'm not sure.
there was sort of an agreement in place where I think that summed up as they could have the other trade hubs if they left us alone. And them and Mogul left us alone in perimeter type of thing. And certainly in the start of the war, we had a lot of fleets from them turning up to help with the bashes and whatnot. Um, as the war went on, their help was pretty much like, and understandably so, non-existent. So there was one case about a month ago where partisans were reinforcing the Tatara, got it to 3% armor, and this 3% armor, and this pirate fleet showed up out of nowhere and just massacred them. It was good fun.
Yeah, that was one of the events where I made a Reddit post about it because it was ironic and funny. Uh, about showing up to structure timers, and I believe I got like negative 100 karma in a day. I actually had to DM gibberish and explain the whole thing because I was like, I couldn't post, I couldn't comment, I couldn't do anything. I was just like, look, like I made one post and I got downvoted to hell. So can you help me out? But yeah, but no, I completely agree. I think that our usefulness in a lot of the situations that you've seen around perimeter, uh, let's just be honest. We can't. It's all about. It's really all about n+1, and we can't really play that game as well as you guys can. I think for the most part, uh, like I said, I can't speak for the directors and the leaders necessarily on this, but I'll say that like I think I think that it was more about keeping things cordial and keeping everybody happy, where we weren't an annoyance, no matter how small that might have been, or no matter how irrelevant people think we may have been. I think that they were just wanting to purely focus on the blunt of the threat to the market hubs.
Well, you guys can be an annoyance, man. I mean, you live in high sec, you got ships up there, like you could camp gates and make it, a hell for us. So, yeah, that seems, kind of like what the deal was.
Yep.
So let's quickly transition over here to the preparations which Pirate are making in order to deal with these upcoming war deck changes. We talked about what the possible effects could be. We realized that probably you guys aren't going to be able to war deck any of the massive groups, but there's still, if you make certain changes, certain decisions, certain adjustments to the way that you fly, you could still be able to access even medium-sized groups or some even large groups, depending on how their turnout the high sec ops would be. So what has Pirate been doing to cope with these changes that are upcoming, and also walk us back in history a bit to the April changes with the remote assistance being removed?
Okay, so I'll start with our current preparations and mental preparedness. So um, I think that a lot of people have kind of been like preemptively tooting this horn, like our way of playing the game is all of a sudden going to fall off and die. I will admit it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be tricky and challenging, and all of those words. But we think that there are ways that we can mitigate, uh, I guess, the amount of damage that some of these groups that are going to go around and try to take down our structures can do. For example, well, not for example, I don't want to talk about that, but there's different things and different strategies that we've been discussing about employing, that at least on paper, we'll see when it goes live, that will ensure that that we're not just completely without our usual content. Obviously, the you'll probably, if you like look at the kill board now, look at the activity, and then you look at it after, you'll see an activity hit for sure. Um, but yeah, there's still a lot of gaminess and stuff around structures. So yeah, um, I don't know if you want me to elaborate. I mean, I'm really not going to elaborate more on like what we're like physically or
Well,
actively doing.
suffice it to say that throughout the conversations around the perimeter war, there's been discussion of multiple bugs and what people call exploits, but are really clever use of game mechanics surrounding avoiding wars and getting structures to switch owners and all sorts of things which are really require a very deep knowledge of the underlying mechanics and also what certain people can and can't do. And Pirate will, of course, being residents of HighSec, this being the main component of their gameplay, be cleverly using various game mechanics to the fullest extent.
I will say within 30 seconds of reading the dev blog, my mind was right, because this is what I love more than like more than killing brand new players in EVE Online. I really love
And
the
we
theory
know you love
crafting
that. Don't even play.
yeah, of course. But it is so much fun to theory craft and think my way out of a box. Because that's what I enjoy. I could care less about fitting ships. I could care less about like being a skilled PvPer. What I care about is like thought process about behind it. I mean, even going so far as like I've been banned for 15 days before because of it. Which is funny. But anyway, I think that for a lot of us, as soon as we read that dev blog, our minds were racing, trying to think of how we were going to break this and bend this to our will. And it was a lot of fun just sitting in TeamSpeak and discussing it with everybody. And then digging deeper and getting clarification and saying, "Oh, well, crap, that's not going to work because of this." But I think that by now we've discussed it enough, and we all kind of have a good idea of what we're going to do. And yeah,
And I think I'm kind of gathering from you that you guys are taking it serious, right? So I think, one thing that I was like afraid of was, that you guys would just dock up, right? And just let the storm pass. But now talking to you and hearing you, I think you guys are taking it serious, and I'm guessing that some doctrine changes, where you guys are, kind of theory crafting, and that's a whole new exciting kind of realm, right? You know, figuring out doctrines and what can you go and what's less expensive, because the days of your Phobos fleets, and Ashimus and all this craziness, like it's you know because at the end of the day, man, it is going to be like you guys are going to be fending off the zombie horde, right? Like, I mean, that's basically what it is. Like, yeah, we could come in. I mean, I'm just repeating what I heard, but I mean, we could come in with like a little T1, but we might just bring a hammer, right?
well, yeah, I wouldn't. I would look down on you guys if you didn't bring a hammer. But like, here's the thing: is like, here's what everybody, like, this is what I mean by like everybody trying to toot this little horn preemptively. This changes nothing about our day to day stuff around Judah. This changes nothing about our day-to-day stuff of catching stuff in the pipe. We're still going to be flying Macarials. We're still going to be flying Vindicators. We're still going to have our Phoboses with 3 points on them, and 3 Sebos and a million other blingy ridiculous things. So yeah, the most effective thing for you to do is to fly your T1 stuff and get 1 kill. That's what people don't understand. Is like, I absolutely I and this I'm about to tie this into like the whole comment you made earlier about like docking up and hiding. What people don't understand is that a lot of times, like, you see, the complaint before this whole Logi thing was that, oh, we have all this neutral Logi, which we did. The group that I flew with specifically, VMG, like for everyone, it was like super common. It was required to have one Logi alt, but like it was super common to have 2 or more. So, but what people don't understand is like, whenever we're docking up, sure, a lot of times we have actual people on uh, to take a fight like that. Sometimes there's a lot of, people aren't interested. But what a lot of people don't see or take into consideration is that it might only be 2 or 3 people, but it looks like there's 20 people online. And so, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, when I was fighting with you guys in the various fleets we did together in HiSec with VMG, I I was FCing one of the fleets, and so I was on both comms, both Mercenary Coalition and VMG, and noticed you guys had like a 45-man fleet, but there were only 6 dudes on comm.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys remember that huge wormhole eviction of Post Party with Wholesale and Whole Control, and I forget who else was involved, but like Chromius, one of the directors, he was one of the leaders of VMG. He, by himself, in a lot of those engagements during that POSPI eviction, was the entire Logi wing, like 15 Logis, like doing that by himself. So yeah, all of our players are stretched incredibly thin in terms of multi-boxing, but yeah, but a lot of that is, I think, at least for me personally, scaling back, um, talking specifically about like the changes to Logi. I was somebody who really enjoyed neutral Logi just because basically it was a free alt to scout with, where you could pop in and out of the engagement whenever you needed to. And so like having it have to be something where you actually have to pay attention to. I could go from three or more neutral logi to only using like two in-house, so that it's not so cumbersome to pay attention to.
I want to
Yeah, I
quickly go
mean,
back to a point you
go ahead.
mentioned earlier where the high sec groups, particularly like you guys are Pirate, then there's also, or at least formerly, there was Marmite and Riot were the other two big dogs. You said that you guys can't do the N+1 thing as good as the larger organizations can, specifically the large nullsec blocks. But I will mention you are taking steps to at least try. Like, if I can pull up the dotland here, the size of Pirate has grown significantly over the past couple of days. So can you talk a bit about the expansions you guys are undertaking?
Yeah, so I wasn't a part of the negotiation and the discussion with Riot and Marmite. It was more of a leadership thing. But like I said earlier, I think it was just a realization that the game hated us all before, uh, but now it's different in that they're actually going to be able to do something about it, meaningful, which is have an actual effect on our wars. And I think that we realized that we were going to be stronger together, and so I think that, like, when I said that we can't play the N+1 game, I'm comparing us to like Pandemic Horde. I mean, yeah, sure. There's gonna be groups of comparable size and larger groups than us that will be able to handle, just based on the experience in multi-boxing and the mechanics that we have employed for years. Um, but yeah, it was something like the whole merger of everybody was something I was pretty nervous about, because whenever like, I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably get angry DMs for saying this, but like, whenever they were first announced, the whole like War HQ thing, like, I was so excited about like throwing some punches again at Marmite, because I don't know how much experience a lot of you guys have in high sec wars, but as you know, like, if you try to bring a fleet to come and kill us, we're either going to take the fight because it's favorable, um, or we're not. We're going to dodge it or blue ball it. There has been times where we've actually taken, a fair fight, or even a fight that didn't favor us exactly, but like, one of the hardest and most frustrating things about fighting other people who use the same mechanics we do is that oftentimes they're just as good as we are at avoiding and evading, and there's so many mechanics for like
I was just
slipping
going to
away.
ask you that. I was just going to ask you that, dude. Like, what happens when
Yeah,
two of you guys meet?
right. It's like, oh, this is awkward. You jumped into my system and you have three ships. Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me disappear for an hour and I'll bring five. Oh, crap. We see you have five. Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's basically the entire gameplay of like Merc versus Merc, or High Sec War Decker versus High Sec War Decker, is that in order to successfully get kills, good kills, you needed to be really good at baiting. Um, and the extent at which you set up a kill is something that you might be sitting logged off, or one of the other various methods that we would use, for hours and hours. And, for what? One kill, one fleet fight. I mean, all of it, you do that, your alt is burned. Any spies you might have had are probably burned, neutralized, are probably burned. Then you got to go and do it all again. I mean, so yeah, I was super excited about these changes. I was like, yes, like, we're finally going to be able to make these groups that we've like had beef with for years, like, the opportunity to put up or shut up. But like I said, I'm probably going to get angry DMs about it, but I was kind of bummed that we
Well,
we weren't going to be able to
yeah,
tear each other apart.
I mean, the kind of the real key, right, is how the mechanic changes that specific gameplay is, if I come at you with, 200 people, you're like, to hell with you. I'm not going to take this fight. I'm going to go dock up, or I'm going to go whatever. Well, we can just go to the structure, right? So,
The War HQ, yeah.
this mechanic, Yeah, the war HQ, and that's going to be the biggest difference. And in nullsec, the thing is, that to force fights, you cause timers. That's what you do. So we have been doing this for years, right? So if we go to frat, right, and it's off time or whatever, and we have way more than them, they're not going to fight us, right? So what do? We start hitting their structures and we start causing timers, and it forces a fight. And that's kind of where you guys are kind of getting this like a little dab of the null sec sort of mechanics, right? So because if we come to fight you and you hide, we're going to hit your structures, and we're just going to keep hitting them and keep hitting them, and you know it's fun, I guess.
Fun is not a word I would use to describe those fleets. At least not most of them. Anyway, you mentioned earlier that Phaley, that these groups, these high-sec merc groups, have had beef for years. Can you give us a bit of history of like who were the significant players in the high-sec mercenary scene, and walk us through sort of the interactions between?
So obviously, I started playing. I'm going to preface by saying this. I started playing in 2012, and pretty soon after, I got involved in high-sec PvP and wars and all that. So a lot of the relationships and beef that groups I've been a part of has predated my existence in Eve, but it's been fun to be a part of. But for example, there's members that in the past have had an issue with the way Tori Bushido, for example, who was the leader and owner of Marmite, the way that he ran things, and a lot of it really comes down to stupid stuff like we told you not to sit on the undock, but yet you're doing it in an insta-locking Loki. But that person gets super butthurt and super offended that like you would tell him that he's not allowed to do something. So that person like gets booted from your group, and then 3 months later you notice he's in another mercenary group or another high sec war deck group, and so because you didn't like that dude, you don't like any of the other dudes. So a lot of it is kind of petty, but a lot of it is kind of interesting. I don't know how much you guys heard about like what ended up happening to VMG, um, but like the Phoenix Twins, which I mean, I'm putting a name out there that absolutely nobody knows. Those were people that those were two twins, two brothers that were in our group that used an almost decade long relationship to basically steal VMG from right under us. And that's something that is you know whether relationships get repaired or not, that's something that stings. That's something that people always remember. So a lot of it is stuff like that. A lot of these guys have been flying with each other or around each other since like 2006. So a lot of it is just like annoyances or personal issues. The whole high sec merc world is fairly small. So a lot of the usual faces have now found themselves under one roof where they've put aside differences. Like I said, the differences and arguments are kind of petty on one hand, but it's also a neat little conflict driver. Most of it was friendly banter, but yeah.
It's interesting how those
No,
relationships, which used to be like competitive and you'd fight with each other, but now they could possibly even be a source of camaraderie. Like, hey, remember that time that we used to go at each other's throats and spam up local and try and kill each other whenever we could? Yeah, those were great times.
Right. So like one thing that I always like made fun of Marmite about, for example, was like how um I guess the way that they flew ships and what they flew. Here we are like, balls out on the table with what we fly. And yeah, we're using cheesy strategies and stuff, but that's aside the point. You may encounter this Marmite dude who's flying something super cheap, but it's still effective. It still gets the job done, kind of like us. But it's like you know he's not I don't know, flying blingy. Anyway, um, so I completely lost
no
my train of thought.
pores. I think is what
Right.
I'm trying to say. No pores in the high sec mercenary gang.
Right. And I mean that's kind of like I would joke and make fun of a lot of the Marmite guys at times for flying that way. but it was, on one hand, like, it was annoying for me because I'm flying this ship that's like worth 3 bill or more, and here they are. If I kill them, I get 100 mil kill. So, it was super annoying, and we would make fun of each other. And there was times where, like for example, Tora and Natural Clone Killer and Lukey. Tora being from Marmite, and then Natural and Lukey being from VMG or Pirate now. They all went to Amsterdam, and like, we had a little presentation from VMG that Natural put on in front of everybody, and like, he ripped a couple of shots at Tora and at Marmite. So but afterwards it was funny and friendly, and they had a beer, and everything was cool. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is super competitive. It was all about making money from contracts. And so if you can make the other guy look bad and make yourself look better, that's what it was about.
So
I want to go ahead.
just as you mentioned contracts there, right? We sort of were talking, and I might be cutting in here, but we've been talking about how you handle the big groups and whatnot. Do you realistically see all these smaller groups that you're going to be war decking still, I assume, for your contracts? Do you actually see the HQ system making much of a difference? Like, honest, I don't personally think many of these groups are going to. I think I'm cutting in and out there. I think most of these smaller groups are going to bother going after Pirates HQ.
So that's one of the things that we were kind of looking forward to. There's been like several iterations of like an anti-pirate coalition or an anti-VMG coalition in the past, where like a bunch of smaller groups, and not necessarily that they're like incapable pilots. It's just like they lack the numbers and the power, and oftentimes the organization. So there's been a couple iterations in the past where like these groups have tried. They've taken fights against us, and ultimately kind of fizzled. Uh, because before we all basically lumped up into pirate, we were all blue: Public Enemy, VMG, pirate, and Mercenary Coalition, um, a Wrecking Machine, Wholesale. So all these groups, they would all show up together to a contract or a structure, and then you'd have like all the little guys on the other side banding together or trying to band together. And sometimes there's been a couple instances where it's worked. I remember a specific fight against Hogs Collective, a Fortizar. I can't remember where exactly, where we got like completely slaughtered ISK-wise, but we still we still won the objective. So that was the important part. But yeah, like, I think the last time we saw it, I actually, the day I came back from taking a break from Eve, there was a Spectrum Alliance, and I forget what the other group was named. Anyway, these smaller groups had a Fortizar that we had discovered, and so they were talking trash about us. So we went and hit it. Well, they formed up to defend, and their FC like totally lemminged into our fleet in a Balgorn. I think that day we ended up blowing up a little more, a little north of 20 battleships in like 4 minutes or something like that. So it was a bloodbath. Right after that, they disbanded the alliance. They their little agreement, whatever, their anti-pirate coalition was no more, and that was it. So I hope that we would see smaller stuff like that, because I think that's healthy for the game. I think that rivalries and hatred and stuff like that is good. I think that if someone hates us enough to find other people that hate us equally or more and try to do something about it, that's good.
There's a part of me
Is
that has been pushing Alexiev Card, the old CEO of Noir, my old corporation, to restart it and have our one and only service be, we can get you out of Vortex. So if anybody gets a Wardeck, we go to him, send him a mail and say, hey, listen, if you pay us X amount of ISK, we will go in and not only hurt the guys who Wardecked you, right? We'll kill one of their structures, but we'll prevent them from Wardecking you for 2 weeks afterwards, right? Because that's part of the mechanics. I really, 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 at least a part of me, the part of me that's absolutely insane and enjoys high sec vortex and high sec structure kills and things like that part of me wanted Noir to restart with the explicit purpose of just going in and wrecking like high sec mercenary structures for the purpose of stopping vortex.
And that sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think White Knight group like that appearing would be brilliant.
Well, to be clear, you'd have to pay us to do it, right? There are no freebies here.
One quick question. What does code have any relation to Super Voltron Pirate? What's that situation? Asking for a friend.
I can't speak for Tora's relationship with code. I do know that in the past, Gasp, we've tried working with certain influential and super important individuals from code and ended up getting not scammed, I guess, like agreements broken. They kind of do their own thing. We try to leave them alone. They leave us alone. So, um, yeah. So I have a lot of friends, or at least associates that I've ganked with in the past that are in code, and I've kind of been at least between VMG, the VMG guys, and a little bit for Pirate. I've kind of been like sort of the mediator at times. So talking to people like Globby or Siegfried. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but yeah.
Yeah, I know Globby and the hyper dunking and all that silliness. So if code isn't a part of Super Voltron Pirate, I still wish you guys well. I still hope to see the best from you guys in the next few months.
I'm very proud of you,
But
Ron.
if code joins, all bets are off. Burn.
So I'm curious. I'm curious, since you're talking like that.
Yeah, man.
Would you care to link the kill mail?
So I always love that comeback because I would love to give you all of my APIs and see that they've never killed me on anything. I just
fundamentally you don't like what they do.
Yeah, and it's only with new players. That's it. It's nothing else.
Ganking, or is it like the rhetoric? Is it like the role playing?
No, so I'm fine with the role playing. I'm fine with the rhetoric. It's just the I mean, for lack of a better term, like the griefing of newer players. And there was just a guy in chat the other day that was talking that he's taking a break because code won't let him mine in high sec, and it's just that's the only part, right? That's the only part that I don't like. It's just that.
I'm slightly curious on a related note. Faley, have you guys ever, because both Code and the various mercenary groups are active around JITA, around Perimeter, and also in the Uedama pipe. The Uedama pipe is low security status, right, so it's good for Code and their ganking, but it's also just a highly trafficked pipe where all of your targets are likely to be going through, so you're there. Have you ever run into situations like where you were stalking somebody, and were about to like tackle and kill them, but they ended up getting ganked before you can kill them? Or have you ever killed a war target and then suddenly a code guy starts giving you salt and tears because he was setting up to gank the same guy you just killed? Does that ever happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, short answer, yeah. But there's also been times where like the code dude has comboed one of us and said, "Hey, I have one of your war targets and a freighter carrying 5 bill bumped. Come and kill it." That way he doesn't have to like risk failing the gank. He doesn't have to risk someone sniping the loot out from underneath him. And, he gets paid off of it, obviously for tipping us off. But yeah, like specifically Siegfried, and, I mean, I've done that with him a lot. I remember, I mean, it's a habit because I love killing freighters and jump freighters. It's a habit for almost daily for me to check the freighter section on Zkill. And I see all the time someone from Mini Love or a Goon Swarm or from Code will kill like a war target of ours. And I'll just be like, dang, we could have had that. If he would have won a couple more jumps, or if our scouts would have seen him. So, but yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any bitterness. There hasn't been any like any arguments or anything like that. You know, if they get the kill and it's a war target, then kudos to them. I mean, they put in the work. We didn't see it. We.
Right on. Right. Any final thoughts? Any other interesting stories from the world of high-sec mercenary war decks, or even going back to you, Radomir? Any like interesting or crazy fights that you're gonna miss not being able to have now that the war has ended?
I just think it's a different type of fighting, and I think we genuinely will miss it. Not everyone will, of course. I think just being able to go out and use some different doctrines that isn't always a hack fleet, or not always having to worry about getting carriers dumped on top of your head was a nice it was a nice change to be
It,
able just to fight in a different
it brings a tear to my eye that we're now complaining about too many hack fleets flying at Eve. It's a great day.
sooner they get nerfed the better. They're hurt. It just literally fly a hacker don't.
All right. Well, with that, we'll quickly mention a few like newsy type topics. So we're on the subject of hacks. The new details, at least some statistics for how the ships will work for the new Triglavian hack, as well as the assault frigate and the command destroyer have hit CC, along with a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other details on what appears to be new Triglavian incursions. I know Ash Sharathi was out today and he was streaming just exploring Singularity and the new systems which the Triglavians have seemingly invaded. So definitely be on the lookout. Hopefully we'll have some more details on that particular thing on a future show. Certainly you can go back and check out the VODs of Ash Sharathi's stream if you want to see it for yourself firsthand, or just hop on Singularity. But it's some super interesting stuff. This looks like it's going to be a huge amount of fun.
And just to add to that, I jumped on Sissy in the assault frigate. I simulate fit it, and it's ridiculous. It's like absolutely ridiculous. It was like 200 DPS, 5 Warrior 2s. It was out of control. So look for that.
Right on. I can't wait to see what various theory crafters have done. I've already seen some people complaining that the new hack and everything are too weak because it takes too long for the damage to spool up, and so it's not really worth it overusing the T1 counterparts, but we'll see. We'll find out how it turns out in the end. That's the biggest news item we wanted to talk about. Anything else that you guys think is interesting happening in EVE right now worth mentioning?
Make sure you're logging in. 16 days. Get
Oh,
all those
good point.
presents.
Yeah, if you haven't already logged in since downtime today, it is the first day of the 16th anniversary of EVE Online. So we're having the ye old Capsuleer Day, but over 16 days, and if you log in every single day, you're going to get a bunch of prizes. And at the end, I think if you're an Omega, you get 1,000,000 skill points, which is freaking awesome. I'll take 1,000,000 skill points. Thanks, ACP.
Yeah, 1,250,000 skill points is absolutely bonk.
It's going to be great. All right, well, how about we get some shoutouts rolling from you guys? Once again, I failed to let our guests know ahead of time that they should prep some. So, Radomir, let's just throw you right into the fire. You got a shoutout for us?
Yeah, this is going to be a weird one. Tess might kill me for this one, but I want to shout out to Horde for coming and taking the fights. Like, at the end of the day, most of us play this game to blow and we got some good brawls out of it. It was good fun, and yeah.
How about you, Faley?
Hi, Mom.
All right, Ron, how about you?
Just a reminder that we're doing the chill streams, Madderall or me during the day, and we just sit around and talk about EVE, and it's good stuff.
You have some interesting guests on those chill streams as well.
Yeah, Madderall, like I was just at 08. I was at the Keep Star, and then Madderall just like popped in and then told us the whole story about how that Keep Star got there. It was really interesting. It's a lot of good stuff. And tomorrow I'm going to have Sapporo, the test exec, there, so it'll be fun.
Right on.
You
If
must
I'm awake,
you
I'll
must
check
get
it
him
out.
to tell you the story about Legacy's name.
Good point.
Is this like, okay, I'm definitely going to have to at least check out the VOD. Is there's more to Legacy than just it's a cool sounding name and there's a legacy of all the groups to get? Okay, this will be fun. Well, my shout out, I am going to return the favor to Radomir and shout out Test Alliance Please Ignore and the rest of Legacy Co. and even the bros from Imperium who showed up to help their blue but not blue friends out in various high sec timers. Shout out to you guys for bringing the fight and giving us some miskies in the end, so that was nice. Alright, well that'll do it for Talking in Stations Season 2, Episode 8. Can't believe we're already like halfway through this season already. I think we're halfway through. Yeah, just about. So, plenty more Talking in Stations content on the way. As always, you can check us out this coming Sunday, as well as the chill streams, which happen throughout the week. Not on a regular schedule, but more often than not, they'll have one. Just make sure you're following twitch.tv/Talking in Stations to be notified if ever we go live with one of those awesome chill stream experiences. That'll do it.